Smoke is rising over Dubai International Airport right now, the world's busiest international airport, the one that handles over 90 million passengers every year, the one where Emirates flies to every corner of the planet. An Iranian drone hit a fuel tank there this morning and flights were suspended. Passengers were directed to bomb shelters. Let that sink in. Not a war zone airport. Not a military base. The airport where millions of ordinary people connect, travel, and do business every single day. Day 17, and Iran just told the whole world exactly what kind of war this really is. Let me take you back to February 28th, because that is when this all started. And the way it started matters enormously to understanding where we are right now. On February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes on Iran. The operation was called Epic Fury. They targeted military installations, nuclear facilities, leadership, and within hours, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei was dead. Now here's something I want you to hold on to as we go through this story. Every military analyst, every regional expert, every person who has studied Iran for the past 20 years said the same thing before this war started. They said Iran will not fight the U.S. military head on. Iran cannot win that fight, and they know it. What Iran will do, what Iran has always done, is something different. They will make the cost of fighting them so unbearable, so widespread, so economically devastating, that the other side eventually asks for a way out. That strategy has a name. It is called asymmetric warfare, and Day 17 is showing you exactly what it looks like in practice. Within days of the strikes, Iran did not just fire missiles at Israel. They declared the Strait of Hormuz closed. They started hitting Gulf Arab countries that host American military bases: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, and they kept going. Now stay with me here, because this is where the story gets more complicated than the headlines suggest. Iran fired over 1,800 missiles and drones at the UAE alone. More than at any other country in this conflict. More than almost at Israel itself. The UAE intercepted over 90% of them. Their air defense systems are genuinely impressive. But here's the thing about intercepting missiles and drones at that volume. It is extraordinarily expensive. Every Patriot interceptor costs around $4 million. Every THAAD interceptor costs $12 million. Iran's Shahed drones cost about $50,000 each to produce. Iran is bleeding the UAE and its allies financially with every single launch, even the ones that get shot down. Follow the money, follow the smoke. That is the real strategy here. And on Day 17, that strategy escalated into something new, something that crossed a line that most military conflicts try to avoid. Iran did not just hit military bases on Monday, they hit Dubai International Airport, they hit oil storage facilities in Fujairah, they hit a petroleum site in Abu Dhabi's Shah Field, and then their Joint Military Command made an announcement that should have been the top headline on every news channel on earth. They announced they would begin targeting banks and financial institutions across the Middle East. Banks, financial institutions, not military assets. Are not U.S. bases, banks. Iran just officially declared economic war on the global financial system. And Dubai is the financial center of the entire Middle East. Dubai is where Google, Oracle, IBM, and Amazon all have their regional headquarters. Dubai is where international banks operate their Gulf operations. Dubai is where the money flows. And Iran just put Dubai directly in its crosshairs. The CNBC report from yesterday named the specific tech companies Iran has explicitly targeted: Google, Oracle, IBM. An Amazon data center in the UAE was already struck, disrupting cloud services across the region. When Iran hits an Amazon data center, that is not a local story. That is a global infrastructure story. I want to ask you something directly. Drop your answer in the comments right now. Before today, did you think of this conflict as something that could affect your bank, your tech services, your ability to travel? Or did it still feel like a Middle East story that lived in a different category from your daily life? Because if it did, Monday just changed that. Let me tell you what Day 17 actually looked like on the ground. Not in briefing rooms, not in press statements, on the ground. At Dubai International Airport, passengers were woken up and directed to bomb shelters in the early hours of Monday morning. Flights were suspended. some diverted to Al Maktoum International Airport. Qatar Airways announced the suspension of most of its flights through March 28th. Flights to Amman, Dubai, Bahrain, Doha, Dammam, Kuwait, Copenhagen, Baghdad, all canceled until March 31st. Think about who is on those flights. Business travelers, your families visiting relatives, workers sending remittances home, migrant workers from South Asia who were about to fly back to the Philippines, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, many of whom work in the UAE and send money home every month to families who depend entirely on that income. The Philippine peso hit a record low against the UAE dirham on Monday morning. That is not an abstract economic statistic. That is a Filipino mother in Manila who just found out her family's monthly money is worth less than it was last week. This is who pays when airports get hit, not the decision makers, the workers, the families, the people with no margin. Now let us talk about the death toll, because it gets buried underneath the economics, and I refuse to let that happen. Across the entire conflict as of today, over 2,300 people have been killed. In Lebanon alone, 886 people are dead. 111 of them, children. 111 children. In Iraq, 47 people have been killed, most of them soldiers from the Popular Mobilization Force. A French soldier was killed at a military base in Iraqi Kurdistan. 13 U.S. service members have died. An 11-year-old girl in Kuwait was killed when shrapnel fell on her residential neighborhood. A 29-year-old Bahraini woman died after an Iranian strike on Manama. A Pakistani national was killed in Dubai when falling debris struck his vehicle in Al Barsha. These people were not soldiers. They were not combatants. They were living their lives in countries that are caught in the crossfire of a war they did not ask for. And here is the hypocrisy I need to call out directly. Iran spent the first week of this conflict insisting they were only targeting U.S. military bases, that their strikes were legitimate responses to foreign military presence on sovereign soil, that they were following the rules of war. And then they hit the Fairmont Hotel on Palm Jumeirah. They hit the Burj Al Arab area. They hit Dubai International Airport. They hit an Amazon data center. They announced they are coming for banks. That is not targeting military infrastructure. That is deliberately targeting civilian economic life. And the gap between what Iran said it was doing and what Iran is actually doing is enormous. I am not saying the U.S. and Israeli strikes have been perfect either. 12 medical workers killed in a strike on a healthcare facility. A UN peacekeeping base hit by shells. And these are violations too, and they deserve accountability too. But when Iran claims to be the measured, principled responder in this conflict, while announcing it will target international banks and financial institutions, that claim deserves serious scrutiny. If you think this economic dimension of the war is not getting the coverage it deserves, if you think people need to understand that this is no longer just a military conflict, but a deliberate assault on global economic infrastructure, share this video, because the story is bigger than what is making the front page. Here's the angle I think almost nobody is talking about clearly enough. Iran is not losing this war militarily. They know they cannot win it militarily, but they are executing a very specific, very deliberate strategy to make winning it too expensive for everyone else. Think about the math for a moment. The first 100 hours of this conflict cost the United States an estimated $3.7 billion, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies. 4 days in, the Center for American Progress put the figure at $5 billion. CNN analysts calculated the ongoing cost at a minimum of $890 million per day. Per day. And here's the part that makes that number even more painful. Every time Iran launches a $50,000 Shahed drone and the U.S. fires a $4 million Patriot interceptor to destroy it, Iran wins that exchange economically. Every single time. They are spending $50,000. America is spending $4 million. Multiply that by hundreds of launches per day. The math does not lie. Iran's strategy is not to defeat the U.S. military. Iran's strategy is to make this war so expensive, financially, diplomatically, economically, that the pressure to stop becomes unbearable. And they are targeting the things that create that pressure most effectively. Not just oil, not just ships, but airports, banks, tech infrastructure, tourist destinations, the things that make the global economy run. On March 17th, today, Israel launched a ground invasion of southern Lebanon. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the operation could result in Israel occupying Lebanese territory indefinitely. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the UK issued a joint statement saying this should be avoided. Germany's chancellor said this war has nothing to do with NATO and is not NATO's war. The EU foreign ministers decided against expanding their naval operations around the Strait of Hormuz, even as Trump demanded they help. America's allies are pulling back, not forward. And here's the question I want you to answer yes or no in the comments right now. Do you believe the United States has a clear exit strategy from this war? A defined set of conditions under which it ends and forces come home? Yes or no? Because 2,300 people are dead. The strait is still closed. Dubai's airport was just hit. Iran is threatening banks, and Israel just invaded Lebanon. If there is an exit strategy, it is not visible from the outside. And the absence of a visible exit strategy is not a small detail. It is the most important detail of all. Let me step back and show you the pattern, because this is not the first time we have watched this unfold. Yet every major U.S. military conflict of the last 30 years followed a version of the same arc. It started with a clear, urgent, morally defensible justification. It launched with overwhelming initial force. Early statements described quick, decisive results. And then reality arrived. The situation grew more complex. The timeline stretched. The costs climbed. The allies grew uncomfortable. And the exit became harder to find than the entrance had been. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, installed after his father was killed in the opening strikes, said this week that the strait will remain closed as long as the attacks continue. Trump responded by threatening more strikes on Karg Island, which he has now called a target he might hit again just for fun. The EU declined to join the military effort. Germany said it is not NATO's war. South Korea is running out of gas. Cuba went dark in an island-wide blackout tied to the fuel shortage. The Philippine peso is hitting record lows. This war started as a strike on Iran's military and nuclear program. It is now a conflict that has touched at least a dozen countries, killed over 2,300 people, closed the world's most important oil waterway, hit the world's busiest international airport, threatened the global banking system, disrupted cloud computing infrastructure, canceled flights across the entire region, and pushed the probability of a global recession to levels that serious economists are no longer dismissing. The people bearing the cost of all of that are not the people who made the decision. The truck driver in Iowa paying more for diesel, like the Filipino worker in Dubai whose flight home is canceled, the farmer watching fertilizer prices climb past what he can absorb, the family in Kuwait who lost an 11-year-old girl to shrapnel on a residential street. The Lebanese family, one of more than 1 million displaced people sleeping in a school gymnasium because their home is in a strike zone. They did not vote for this war. They were not consulted. And they are paying the price in money, in safety, and in lives. Follow the money, follow the smoke, and ask the question that the powerful always hope you will not ask. Who decided this, and who is paying for it? Smoke is still rising over Dubai tonight. The airport that never sleeps went quiet for the first time in its history. The strait is still closed. The ground invasion of Lebanon has begun. And somewhere in Washington, someone is preparing a press briefing about progress. 2,300 people are dead. The bill is $890 million a day, and the exit sign is nowhere in sight. The question that this war has not answered, the one that matters more than any military briefing, is there a plan for how this ends? Or did the plan stop at how it starts?